All this on a traffic stop.
Go ahead and invite them both of Miranda too, so that they know. Because if this is a case where they're locking the glove box, it'll be a felony obstruction.
Before I ask you any questions, you must understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you as evidence in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any further questions and to have a lawyer with you during questioning. If you are unable to employ a lawyer, one will be appointed to advise you before and during any questioning. You have the right to terminate this interview at any time. Do you understand these rights as I've explained them to you?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Rowland, do you understand your rights?
That's right.
So things such as movement, things such as a time frame, handcuffs may or may not. Again, it depends on the circumstances. If you roll up to a scene, you see something going on, you throw somebody in handcuffs real quick for your safety, and once you've kind of got things stabilized, you take them back out of handcuffs and you continue your investigation. Is it investigative detention or an arrest? Probably just going to be the detention. But again, it's going to depend on all the circumstances. Has some force been used? Are there a bunch of officers standing around? Are there a bunch of officers with shotguns or rifles standing around? Are there a bunch of blue lights and sirens and everything going on? Does a person feel intimidated, coerced? Then it's probably going to be an arrest. But it's going to be a wide range of things. Okay, so these are our three tiers of citizen police encounters: the consensual encounter, the investigative detention, the arrest. Okay, there's a lot of case law on all three of these, especially when we're talking about the information that's needed and whether or not Miranda applies. Okay, Miranda is going to be no, maybe, and yes. The maybe is going to be the tough one. Okay, we definitely know that if they're under arrest, we need to read Miranda. We know that if it's just consensual encounter, then you don't have to. It's this big area right here in the middle that's going to trip you up sometimes. Okay, keep in mind that for the reasonable articulable suspicion, you're going to have something more than just time of day, or a person doesn't fit a neighborhood or something like that. If, for example, you're working midnights and your sergeant, your lieutenant says, "Look, I want a bunch of FIRs from you tonight." And for those that don't know, FIR, field investigative report or field interrogation report, generally it's little cards. Of course, we do it now in the computer system. It's just a brief, made contact with somebody in a particular area. You made a notation of who they were, what was going on. That way, if a crime was developed later on, detectives could go back and look at those and see, oh, okay, these people were in the area at that time. Okay. If your sergeant or your lieutenant says, hey, look, we need a bunch of FIRs from you tonight, and you go out and you see somebody just walking down the street and it's after dark, and you force them to stop and talk to you, you do not have reasonable articulable suspicion. That is going to be a consensual encounter only. So if you try to stop the guy and all you've got is it's after dark and the sergeant told you to go do a bunch of these.
Where's he getting the boxes?
Huh? I don't know.
Where was he at?
He was right here in front. He was right here in front. So of course I asked him, sir, was the reason why you're here? I don't answer police questions. I don't ask questions. I have questions. So go to the other side, ask him, sir, can you go ahead and step out? Yeah, he steps out. So, sir, can you please provide you with your name, date of birth, anything? He's like, no, I don't. He quotes the Fifth Amendment and he quotes all this, he quotes all that. So of course I run this 28, get history. He's given problems before. Doesn't give. So I get his name, and of course run approximate age. They find his 27.
Okay.
Which comes with his date of birth, and then they send me and it's him. So, but I mean, as far as failure to identify, you can unless he's under arrest. It's not being detained. It's under arrest.
It's under arrest.
For
arrest? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why you can't go.
You can cite.
10:15 one time and run to EPCSO for arrest paperwork.
It will be.
2 George 42 will stand by with passenger for responsible party.
It'll be Philly's
So,
ID.
but he wanted to speak. He wanted to speak to the supervisor. So that's why I asked him to
Citation.
come back.
All right.
You know, so that's why. That's the only reason I asked him.
So what's going on, man?
Is there probable cause to arrest me?
Well, right now you're not being under arrest. You're being detained.
Okay.
We just wanted to know who
I'm
you
not
were at.
trying to do nothing.
All right, man. So he told me that you wanted to speak with a supervisor.
Are you a supervisor?
Today I am.
Okay. Well, unless there's probable cause to arrest me, I'd like to be taken out of handcuffs and allowed to be on my way. If that's all right with you.
All right. That's all you want, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. So what were you doing out here?
Oh, I don't answer questions.
Okay. Did you provide the officer with your ID?
No, sir, I didn't.
Why not?
I don't answer questions.
You don't answer questions at all?
No, sir. The Fifth Amendment protects me from incriminating myself.
Okay. Is there anything that illegal in such vehicle that we should
I
know
don't
about?
answer questions.
Is there anything that illegal in such vehicle that we should
I
know
don't
about?
answer questions.
Is there anything that illegal in such vehicle that we
I
should know
don't
about?
answer questions.
Is there anything that illegal in such vehicle that we should
I
know
don't
about?
answer questions.
Is there anything that illegal in such vehicle that we
I
should know
don't
about?
answer questions.
Is there anything that illegal in such vehicle that we should
I
know
don't
about?
answer questions.
Okay. You said right here, right?
Yeah, he's working plus the
You can get a canine out here. Search the vehicle.
he's
Yeah, just like tried asking for one earlier, remember? We did, but we just asked. We'd have to get a border patrol out here.
Internal Affairs, Elizabeth, may I help you?
Yes, I was trying to get in touch with Detective Bautista.
Let me put you on hold. He's let me see if I can get him. He's eating his lunch. And you are?
My name is Andre
Andre, your last name?
Lagergren.
Okay. Let me put you on hold, okay?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to bother you from your lunch, Detective.
It's okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Andre. I'm calling about case number 2020-02762.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I obtained the video. I obtained the report, and I have brought it up to my supervisors, and so it's in the process of getting vetted, so getting looked at, and so that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
Okay.
There was some other information I wanted to bring up to you regarding that case.
Okay.
I'm no lawyer, but I believe that once I was placed under arrest, that the sheriff's department was that they were duty bound to read me my Miranda rights.
Okay.
And my Miranda rights were never read to me. I never ended up getting arrested, but I was told very clearly several times initially that I was under arrest.
Okay.
And so at that point, I believe that is supposed to be the law, that one of the deputies, because at first there was only 2 deputies, but then several others showed up.
Okay.
So I believe that one of the deputies, maybe the supervisor or whoever they chose, should have read me my rights once I was told I was under arrest, but none of them did.
Okay. I'll be sure and supplement that. I'll make a note of that you called me on this time and told me about that you were not read your Miranda rights.
And one other thing I want to add to that, and I'm going to let you go in just a second. It's not going to take long.
That's fine. No, that's fine, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. But the Miranda rights is the first issue, and then following right up behind that as the secondary issue, which is very related to the Miranda rights, is that once I was in handcuffs, I was kept in handcuffs the entire time until I was released. So it wasn't like a regular seizure where they just say sit on the sidewalk while we figure this out.
How long do you think you were in handcuffs?
I believe that it was like less than an hour, but it was definitely more than 40 minutes. I'd have to check the exact time.
Okay, no, that's okay. I mean, even it's an estimate, but it's good to know so that I can put it that you estimated it just under an hour or something like that.
I can tell you this: is I was pulled over because I was at the parking lot of the Dollar Tree. I was just checking the hours of the store, and the sheriff's department pulled into the parking lot They saw my car. I guess they thought that there was something going on, so they came up. They turned on their emergency lights. They pulled me over. That happened at 11:45 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So then, going past midnight, by the time they let me go, it was probably like, 12:30. Between 12:30 and 1 a.m. is when I was let go. So it was
Okay.
less than an hour, but more than 40 minutes is what
Okay.
it felt like. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be sure and note that too. That
And then-
you thought it was extensive.
Well, not necessarily.
Or,
The length of time, I'm going to let the sheriff's department decide on their own whether the length of time was reasonable based on the circumstances, because I'm not a police officer. I don't know what was going through their mind. But
okay.
what I can say is this, is that the sheriff's department did not read me my Miranda rights, which I am 99% certain. I would say 100% if I was a lawyer, but I'm 99% certain they were supposed to do that. And then once my Miranda rights were not read to me, someone might get away with saying, oh, well, we didn't need to read them because we just told you to sit on the sidewalk. But that wasn't the case. I was in handcuffs. So once I'm in handcuffs, I'm pretty sure that means they have to read me the Miranda rights. Because they said I was under arrest at first, many times, and they kept me in handcuffs.
Okay.
So I was under arrest, even though I wasn't in a jail cell.
Okay.
And then as the time went on and I just kept standing there in handcuffs, they never told me that they were going to let me out of them. The only time they told me I was going to get out of them is when they said, okay, if you sign this citation, then you're free to go. So that was my only way of getting out of handcuffs. So as far as I was concerned, I was under arrest for about 40 minutes at least.
Okay.
And what I wanted to add to that is that, and this goes along with the Miranda rights, this is the follow-up I was talking about, is that while I was in handcuffs, I was questioned and interrogated by the supervisor that showed up. Because he showed up, the other deputies had stopped asking me any questions. They were waiting for him to show up. Actually, I had requested the supervisor. So once the supervisor showed up, he started asking me additional questions, which I consider to be interrogating questions. He was asking me, is there anything illegal in the car? What are you doing here? I don't know the exact, one of them ones that I do remember was, is there anything illegal in the car? And then he asked me a couple others. They were all the type of questions that you would ask someone to figure out criminal activity. So that means that those questions should not have been asked unless someone read me my Miranda rights.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so that is my main two issues I want to bring up to you on this phone call, is that I was told I was under arrest. There was no question that I was at least temporarily under arrest, because I wasn't just told, like I said, to sit on the sidewalk or stay where I was. I was put in handcuffs the whole time. And then while I was in handcuffs, which is a coercive technique, like when you're in handcuffs, obviously your mind is somewhere else. You're not thinking the same way. Then while I was in handcuffs, that's when I was questioned by the sheriff's deputy. It wasn't a consensual encounter. I was questioned while under arrest, and they never read the Miranda rights. I consider that to be something that the internal affairs should definitely know about and look into, because I mean that's how this country is supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to work. Yeah.
Okay, sir. I'll make note of that.
Okay. Well, thank you for your service, Detective Bautista, and I'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks, sir. Bye-bye.
Yep, bye.
June 13, 1966. Today, the Supreme Court handed down a decision that guarantees criminal defendants will be made aware of their constitutional rights. Some are calling Miranda versus Arizona a landmark decision. Others say it is a victory for criminals.
Yeah, I did it. I didn't want to, but she made me do it. Always nagging me.
The Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states that no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. But what does that really mean? Inside this building, 9 men have deliberated over one of the most controversial criminal law cases of our time, Miranda v. Arizona. It began when a man named Ernesto Miranda signed a confession during police questioning. Did he have a right to have a lawyer present? Did police need to tell him that he could remain silent if he chose? The justices have heard arguments representing both sides of the case. John J. Flynn, the attorney representing defendant Ernesto Miranda, argued,
Under the facts and circumstances in Miranda of a man of limited education, of a man who certainly is mentally abnormal, who is certainly an indigent, when the adversary process came into being, the police, at the very least, had an obligation to extend to this man not only his clear Fifth Amendment right, but to accord to him the right of counsel.
Gary K. Nelson argued on behalf of the state of Arizona.
If the extreme position is adopted that says he has to either have counsel at this stage or intelligently waive counsel, then a serious problem in the enforcement of our criminal law will occur.
By a narrow margin of 5-4, the Supreme Court has decided in favor of Miranda. Chief Justice Earl Warren expressed the majority opinion. Quote, when an individual is taken into custody or otherwise deprived of his freedom by the authorities in any significant way and is subjected to questioning, the privilege against self-incrimination is jeopardized. End quote. Justice Harlan strongly disagreed, but his was the minority position. Quote, the social costs of crime are too great to call the new rules anything but a hazardous experimentation. End quote. The controversy over Miranda has continued outside the courtroom. Does the court's ruling coddle criminals or protect individuals from police intimidation? In a Senate hearing about controlling crime, Senator Sam J. Ervin declared,
As a practical matter, isn't the result of the Miranda decision that self-confessed criminals are turned free in the courts throughout this country simply because the arresting officer failed to tell the criminals something he already knew?
Others, such as Senator Robert Kennedy, felt differently. Quote, you think that additional warning in some way infringes upon effective law enforcement? Those are his rights, are they not, under the Constitution? Doesn't he have the right to remain silent? Did you tell him he could have the opportunity to keep his mouth shut? End quote. The ruling has made crime and law enforcement an issue in the 1968 presidential campaign.
In recent years, crime in this country has grown 9 times as fast as population. I pledge to you, the wave of crime is not going to be the wave of the future in America.
There's no doubt Miranda will remain a contentious decision. But for now, police will need to add a few more lines to their rule book.
You have the right to remain silent and refuse to answer any questions. Anything you say may be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to consult with an attorney at any time and have him present before and during questioning. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided if you so desire prior to questioning.